It's more because doing Hangouts is an easier way to get all the audio.
Okay.
Audacity is more a backup in case like audio cuts out occasionally. Or
Now, Audacity's not going to catch your stuff. It's only going to catch my half of the conversation, though, right?
no, Audacity's catching everything that I'm saying. It's not catching what you're saying. Or well, on your half, yeah, it is catching yours.
My half is catching everything I'm saying. Okay, that's good.
All right, so now we know if the invite doesn't go through, I can just send you the link and that'll work.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, let's get this thing started. Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, we are the Frozen Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Dugas. Now, joining me today is a guy whose favorite flower is the potato. My newest co-host, Mr. Scott Summers.
There will never again be a flower famine anywhere in the world. You gotta just go with it, you know. Potatoes, flowers, whatever, you know. If you're hungry, eat it.
Whatever works, I guess.
Hey, man, there's nothing like, you know, some French fried flowers, you know, some flour salad. You can boil them, mash them, put them in a stew, you know, all that good stuff. Hey, I hear somebody in the background. Who's that back there?
Well, also joining us in the background is a baby whose vocabulary consists entirely of grunts and coos. My son, Randall Dugas.
Yeah, I'm sure he makes a lot more noises, but not necessarily ones you want to share on the air.
Yeah, but those aren't really his vocabulary. That's just bodily functions.
Yeah, and lots of those. How old is your son now?
He'll be 12 weeks tomorrow.
12 weeks. Wow, time is flying by. I actually get to meet him for the first time about a week from Sunday. You guys are coming down to hang out at the Super Bowl party we're having, so it'll be my first chance to get to meet the little guy.
Absolutely. And if it works out if it's okay with you, we were thinking of bringing Bear too, so that he could, so he wouldn't be stuck in his kennel all day.
Yeah, that should work out just fine. We'll figure out a place for him to hang out. He can hang out with our dog if nothing else.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So anyway, how are things going for you, Mr. Summers?
You know, things are going real well. Busier than I've ever been. I'm doing a lot of different stuff right now. I'm, of course, working, and I've got a second job. I'm a pastor here in the small town of Kenny Lake, Alaska, which is about 400 miles away from anywhere. It makes the town that Nathan lives in look like an enormous metropolis, so much so that my children are afraid to go there because there's too many people in his town. So anyway, I'm doing that, and then I've got another job down here that I used to get to know people in the community, which is a lot of fun. And then I'm coaching hockey for the first time this year. So the big problem with that is I have absolutely no idea what anything in hockey really means. So it's all a new experience for me, but the kids are enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it. It's just keeping us running like a one-armed wallpaper hanger.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah. How about you? How's life up there in your grand area?
Well, things are going pretty well. Those of you who follow our Twitter account know that I've been a dad for a while, and well, a little while anyway, a little tiny while. Not near, 12 weeks. Nowhere near as long as you have. So, you know, Rand is doing really well. He's grown well, and obviously you'll hear him making noises in the background, hopefully not any real serious fussing.
Yeah, get him up there. Just hold him. He's fine.
Yeah. I think we'll try it again.
Oh. He's definitely better looking than you are, so we'd rather look at his mom.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Takes more after his mommy.
Lucky him.
And he does have her eyelashes.
Does she need them anymore? Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm just full of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, first off, just for our listeners, wanted to let you guys know, Scotty and John, we're not really sure if they're going to be back on at all. They're both really busy. John's still one of the only drivers for sanitation, and Scotty's been coaching hockey, and I'm not sure what else because he's been really busy. So at this point, right now, Scott is a new member, and beyond that, it's hard to say whether or not we're going to have anyone else. Rand will make guest appearances every once in a while, at least in video form, if not a little bit in the audio with his cooing and whatnot. But anyway, now that since Scott is joining us this day, Scott, we want to have you give out some of your basic information, just as we have with all of our other people who have joined in on the podcast. So start off with giving us your name. Obviously we already said your name, but you can introduce yourself a little bit.
My name is Scott Summers. I'm 36 years old. I've got 3 kids. We've been married. I've been married to my wife now for going on 12 years. My oldest kid is now 10 years old, and we might have to have him join us on the podcast sometime because he's an enormous gamer when it comes to Minecraft. That kid knows more about Minecraft than most adults I've ever met. So we'll have to have him join us and get a little different perspective because I don't know the first thing about Minecraft. But like I said a little bit earlier, I'm a pastor here in Kenny Lake, Alaska, which is a small town, about 300 people. And I've been out here for about 6 months. I've lived in Anchorage for most of the last 10 years. And I met Nathan and his lovely wife when we were in college together many, many years ago.
Yep. So, Scott, why don't you tell everyone about the gaming systems you've owned throughout your life and what you have now?
Well, that's interesting because I started out gaming, of course, on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I wish I had one right now, but I don't. Though I did see on the local bulletin board on Facebook there, Nathan, there's an N64 and a GameCube going for $300 with about 8 or 9 games. So I don't know.
That's kind of a ripoff.
I don't know. That's might be pretty decent. I don't have any of those game systems though.
What I would say is you can borrow mine if you really want to play it, rather than spending so much money. Because I got my NES several years ago with 10 games for $20.
Okay.
And
there you go.
And they're all really good ones. And then my N64 have at least a dozen games, and I think that would cost me $30.
See, that's the beauty about Wii, which is the only console I own, is that you have the Wii, I don't even know what they call it, but where you can download the old games. So my kids are all learning the old school games. They're playing, my oldest just learned how to herd goats in Twilight Princess, and they're playing the Legend of Zelda, and on Wii you can also pause and save your Mario game. So my son's gotten up to level 8-4, and he's still trying to work through that, but he's about ready to beat Bowser for the first time in the 8-bit Super Mario Brothers. So that's going great. But as far as gaming systems, I had a lot of systems all the way up through my early 20s, and then when I got married, I switched almost 100% over to PC gaming. So I haven't had anything really that I've played in terms of a console since probably a game. I owned a PS3, but never played it. Used it for a DVD player, and I've got a
other than Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I played that, but I probably only played Red Dead Redemption for maybe 3 hours. I never got very far into it. I'm not a big fan of the of gaming with a gamepad. I much prefer using a keyboard. So I'm going to be, any information I'm going to give at this point is going to be almost 100% based on PC gaming, just because I don't have the experience with consoles. I just don't really use them. But I can tell you an awful lot about PC gaming because that's where I've spent the majority of my time. And that's what I'm gaming on right now. I've got an Asus gaming laptop, and it'll run. So far, it'll run anything that the gaming industry's thrown at us. I haven't had anything where I've had to play on less than high graphics. So I'm playing Fallout 4 right now, and of course, that's not too graphic heavy, but it handles it just fine.
Nice.
Oh, somebody's not quite so happy.
Yeah, Rand is being pretty fussy, but we'll just do the best we can with this, and I'll probably edit out some of that later. And then the last, or no, I guess I have two other things as far as your intro stuff goes. Your top 3 favorite games of all time.
Of all time, well, I gotta say Super Mario Brothers, because that's what started it all for me. And then because I'm an enormous RPG fanatic, I gotta say The Legend of Zelda. I can still go back and play that over and over again, especially when you get into A Link to the Past. But the original Legend of Zelda, and then I'd have to say Skyrim. It probably jumps all the way up to Skyrim. I put about 400 hours into Skyrim over the course of a year, and it was pretty intense. So yeah, you got to go with the old school stuff, the stuff that got you started, and then that would be Mario Brothers and Zelda, and then following it up by the newest best out there, which I still think is Skyrim. I don't think there's a better game on the market right now.
All right. And then the last question here is, what is your current gaming addiction? I think you pretty much already answered that. But
Yeah, I'm about 150 hours into Fallout 4, and considering all the other stuff I'm doing, that's taking up most of my free time. My wife's a writer; she's an author, so she spends about 4 or 5 hours a night doing that, which gives me some time in the evenings once the kids go to bed, so I can just sit and lose myself in right now into post-apocalyptic Boston.
yeah, I think the one thing that makes me most interested in Fallout 4 is just an Easter egg, and that's the fact that they have the Cheers bar in there. I mean, it's not labeled as Cheers, but it does have. It's laid out exactly the same way, and there are skeletons that are clearly supposed to be like Norm and Cliff and stuff.
Yeah, I haven't actually found it yet. I try not to search for the Easter eggs because I like to come across them, but I know it's there. The thing that I like about Fallout, well, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but I mod it. I mod it until it crashes, and then I figure out what made it crash, and then I back it off and play with whatever I can. So the opportunities that you have in a game that you can mod so heavily, it turns the vanilla game into something that you can go into a completely new direction with. That's another reason I like Skyrim, because you can mod it to play your style, and you're not stuck with whatever the developers wanted.
All right. Okay, so why don't we get into stuff we're currently playing? Is there anything other than Fallout 4 for you?
Well, I just downloaded Blade and Soul, which is an MMO, and I've spent I've spent many of my hours in my life playing MMOs. I played Star Wars. I played World of Warcraft for a while. This one's going to be my next move once I'm done with Fallout 4, and I'm about halfway through the main storyline, and most of the side quests in Fallout, they actually didn't do a really good job with factions as far as I'm concerned. So Fallout's taking up my time, but once that's done, then I'm going to be checking out Blade and Soul, and it looks pretty good. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a martial arts themed MMO. So instead of having just the basic tank DPS and healer, you can have a kung fu master and a lot of different options. So you're not just looking like you would in World of Warcraft. That kind of looks like they broke the mold a little bit. So I'll be interested to see what that has to offer.
Well, as far as what I've been playing, I mean, there's been lots of stuff since the last time recorded the podcast with Scotty R, and but just covering the main ones that I'm playing right now. Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U. It's a humongous RPG. I mean, the world is 154 square miles, which is larger than Skyrim, Fallout 4, and what was the third one? GTA 5 combined. It's larger than The Witcher 3 as well, but not with all the other ones.
Fallout's much more than 9 square miles. Skyrim's only about 9 square miles, and Fallout.
Yeah, I think it was like Fallout is 30 square miles. Skyrim is just under 15, and GTA 5 is about 49.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly massive world and a really, really fun game. I mean, there's so much to do. If there's one complaint I have about the game, it's that there is a lot of graphical pop-in. But the plus side is that there are virtually no load times whatsoever. And basically just when you go inside a building or if you do quick travel, and even then it's only like maybe 5-10 seconds. And then apart from that, it's all it's just everywhere you go, you have textures load in, but that's it. I mean, you're not losing anything as you're going along. You're not having to wait.
Yeah,
but
sounds like a good
really,
game.
really massive game. Xenoblade Chronicles X. I think you would probably like it. It's very sci-fi, and it's the battle system. Even though it's a Japanese RPG, it's very heavily influenced by Western RPGs, especially MMOs.
Okay.
And I don't know, it just works really well.
Well,
whereas a game that came before it by the same developer, Monolith Soft, called Xenoblade Chronicles, which is on the Wii, and this one's not actually a sequel; it's more of a spiritual successor. But like Xenoblade Chronicles had a better story, but X has better gameplay.
Okay. So what in the gameplay makes it better?
Well, for one, like exploration's a whole lot better because you can go literally anywhere on the map. I mean, like there are these structures that are literally 1,000 feet up in the air, and you can get to the top of those. You can go to any corner of the map, any section at all, and it's so humongous, and you can move around a lot faster because you can actually sprint, whereas in the previous game you couldn't. You can jump higher. When you fall, you don't take damage. Just things like that really make the exploration better. The combat is basically just an improved version of the combat from the previous game with a bit more variety to it. You can switch between melee and ranged attacks on the fly, which in the previous game everyone was just, they had defined rules, each of the characters did. There's so much that can be said about it. I actually wrote a review for geeksworldwide.com, or rather the GWW.com. And there I talk all about it. I also recently did a spoiler cast with one of my fellow writers, all about the game. That we ended up talking about 3 hours about the game. So
oh, wow, that's awesome.
But I put over 100 hours into it since beginning of December when the game came out, and I haven't played much recently, more just because I've been messing around with some other stuff. But it is really beyond that. I also played more Destiny, which to our normal listeners comes as absolutely no surprise, even though I actually did take like close to a 2-month break from it, which is pretty significant considering the fact that before I was playing at least 2 to 3 nights a week for sure, and then beyond that, sometimes other nights as well.
Okay.
And spend hours and hours and hours on it, and I have, well, before I stopped, I had over 400 hours in the game, and could easily put a lot more.
Now, what time do you get to play? Are you up late at night playing, or are you in the morning? Because you work most days, right?
Well, yeah, I work during the day, and like if I'm as far as playing Destiny in general, it's usually just like after work. It varies from day to day. I mean, it's definitely been different since Rand was born. Before Rand was born, I would like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, I would spend pretty much most of the evening playing. But if Destiny ever makes its way to PC, I think you'll really enjoy it because the gunplay is just so good, and it is really fun. It can be really grindy at times, but because of how good the gunplay is and because of how great the co-op is, it really makes up for any elements of grindiness.
Okay. Now, when you say the gunplay is great, what's good about it?
Well, I mean, it's just really fluid. Like I never liked playing shooters with a controller before. But then I got Destiny because I bought a PS4 early last year, and it came with Destiny. And at first I was just kind of like, well, I'll try it, because a couple of my friends were already playing it, and I ended up just really getting into it because it was fun, and I started to become more confident at playing with a controller. I mean, mouse and keyboard is still better, but for this game, the controller just works really well, and I really like the DualShock 4. It's a big improvement over the DualShock 3.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I, of course, as you know, I just recently got a new PC, a very hefty gaming PC for about $800 cheaper than it would have cost me if I paid for all the parts myself. Plays everything I've tried at maximum settings. The games that I've really actually played quite a bit of, or at least played an hour or two. Far Cry 3 and Dishonored and Quantum Conundrum, which is one that I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. They're coming out with a sequel to Dishonored finally. It's about time.
Yeah.
One of the greatest games.
Yeah, I've still never finished Dishonored. I mean, I've always heard it was really good, and I played like an hour when I bought it a couple summers ago, but I never actually got real far in it. And of course, my laptop can only like sort of run it decently. But now that I have a PC that can run it, everything maxed out, I mean, it's a gorgeous looking game, runs super smooth, and since I started getting some of the powers.
Now, when you play it, you have to play it in two different ways. You have to go through.
I like that challenge. I said I'm going for all stealth and non-lethal because I like that challenge.
Yeah, and that's fun. You have to ghost it, but it's also a lot of fun to go through it and go high chaos and just destroy everything and everybody in your path. So when I play it, I always replay it through twice. One time, just go through and just destroy everything because it's fun, and then the challenge of trying to ghost it, and that can be tough. I mean, you find yourself saving and restarting a lot because one of those guards see you and he completely throws your ghost achievement out of the way. So yeah, you got to play it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to, but I'm going to start by playing just stealth because I like playing that way. And so far, I mean, I'm not like super far into it. I think I played maybe 5 hours, something like that. Let's see here. Where am I? I'm at the part where you have to go and assassinate the person who potentially has Emily, I think is the girl's name.
Yeah.
I can't remember the princess. But yeah, I'm just at there, and I just messed with it a little bit, but I like it a lot. And Far Cry 3, similar. I'm really glad because when I tried to play it before on my laptop, it just would not run well at all. It was really bad. And so now it's like I have everything maxed out. It's gorgeous, and I'm having fun with it. I put maybe like a couple hours into that, and then Quantum Conundrum is one that I had bought back when it came out. I think that was 2012, and I played probably about 5 hours of it back then, and I put in another couple hours last night, started getting back into it, continuing from where I left off. And I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but it's the concept was designed by the same person who came up with the console. So it's very much a puzzle kind of game.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Steam's website right now while you're talking about it. It looks like it's got some interesting graphics. Not my favorite type, but good gameplay can always get you past graphics that you're not used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's far from perfect, but I mean, I definitely like the puzzle mechanics. I think that they're really interesting, and it definitely makes you have to think quite a bit. which is
Yeah,
cool.
that's always nice.
And
We're talking about the shooting or the gunplay in Destiny. One thing I like about Fallout, we were chatting about this a little bit the other day, but the gunplay in Fallout, it's got the typical, point and click shooting that you'd find with most shooters, but I only use that maybe 10%, 15% of the time. The rest of it is what they call VATS, which is the
yeah,
Vault-Tec assisted targeted shooting. But what's nice about that is you can choose your target and you can choose where you want to shoot your target, and it's all done in bullet time.
yeah,
And so you're in the middle of getting mauled to death by some beastie that's out there that's genetically engineered or modified from all the radiation, and you can
mm,
still choose to shoot it in the head or shoot it in the chest, or if you're lucky, you can shoot it in the arm and make it lose its nuclear fat man little bomb that it's going to try to blow you up with. So it's got a lot of different options. That's another thing that I like about it, because I'm not a big shooter player, but it
yeah.
definitely gives it a new perspective. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the little bit that I played of Fallout 3 like late last year, I messed with that a bit, and I mean, I thought it was a cool concept, but I don't know, it just, like, when I wasn't using it, it just felt really, really clunky. And I mean, I think part of it is probably just because I've gotten so spoiled by Destiny and just how good the gunplay is in that game that it kind of made it less enjoyable for me. But I don't
Yeah.
know, it just wasn't grabbing me. And of course, the fact that the game is basically just like shades of green. Well, for Fallout 3, obviously not Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is much better looking, but yeah,
Yeah, I never ever could get into Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. I tried them, I downloaded them, I bought them on Steam, did everything I could as much as I could to try to get into it, and I couldn't. And I really, really wrestled back and forth before I did Fallout 4, and I didn't buy it until I was able to get it on special right before Christmas. I got it for 15% off, so I was able to in my mind make it worth purchasing, and I've enjoyed it ever since. And it's also going back to Minecraft I was talking about with my boy earlier. One thing I like about Fallout is it gives you the opportunity to build the settlements, and it's not just one settlement. I mean, I've got on my game that I'm into it 150 hours. I've got, I don't know, a dozen, maybe 15 settlements, and you got your one or two big ones where you spend most of your time building your own personal house and all that. But then you're running around and you're building all these other settlements with all these other nuclear face fried, they look like fried egg creatures that are out there that are actually good guys that are just settlers out there in the middle of the wasteland. So it's definitely it's got that Minecraft feel because you spend as much time building as you do spend going out and just destroying anything that moves. So it's not just a shoot 'em
yeah,
up, kill 'em all. There's more more civilization feel to it as well. But I'll be done with it too. Once I'm done with it, I don't think I'll ever go back to it. It's not one that's going to draw me back like Skyrim did. Once I'm done with the
mm,
story, I'll be done with it and I'll move on to something else and probably never pick it back up again. So that's saying something. If it doesn't have replayability, then it's not nearly as great a game as they like to make it out to be.
yeah. Um, Going back to what I've been playing, Poker Night 2 is one I've messed around with quite a bit. I mean, I bought both the Poker Night games sometime last year, and it's just a fun, little distraction. Plus, of course, GLaDOS making wisecracks at you all the time is hilarious. But then beyond that, I just tested out a number of games on my new PC, Tomb Raider, which I'd already beaten, but I just maxed out settings and it was fantastic. Everything running smoothly. Wolfenstein: The New Order, which is one I started late last year and I still haven't finished, but I'm planning to get back into and finish it up. LA Noire, which is one I've already beaten. That one doesn't run as well, but it's more just because it's poorly optimized.
Oh yeah.
Final Fantasy, Alan Wake, and Borderlands 2.
Okay. Yeah, Borderlands 2. I just downloaded on my office computer so I can play when I've got some free time every now and then, and I'm looking forward to getting in there and playing some co-op with you. Um,
Definitely.
I started LA Noire. The problem that I have with LA Noire, and you're going to learn this as your little guy starts moving around, is there's going to come a time when it's harder and harder to concentrate on story-driven games.
Hmm.
If my kids are up and around, I can't sit and listen to the dialogue, which
Yeah.
makes it a lot harder. And so I have to find something that I can just be able to pay attention to them, because as they get older, they're not going to bed at 7 o'clock at night anymore. Now it's 10:30 or 11, and my 10-year-old is a geek, and so he wants to watch Stargate SG-1 with me every day, or
Yeah.
Star Trek, or whatever, just to hang out with Dad. So I've got less time that's just focused on those story-driven, dialogue-driven games. If you can't listen to an entire cutscene, then it makes it really hard. And LA Noire was just so full of those. It was fun to drive around in stolen car, or not stolen because you were a good guy, but
Yeah.
I want to finish it eventually. I just don't know when I'm going to be able to sit down and actually watch it, because it's almost like a movie that you have to be able to catch all the lines to.
Mhm.
It was a good one though. I liked it.
Yeah. Definitely. And I mean, it has a really good story. Like, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, it was dark, of course, but that's kind of to be expected with the title of the game,
Yeah,
and the fact
absolutely.
that it's made by Rockstar. But yeah, it was really interesting. And of course, obviously, the facial animations were absolutely stellar because of the fact that they, had so much motion capture going on for, real people's faces and everything.
yeah, yeah, it was great. I'm
So
actually trying to
anyway,
pull it up.
moving on into stuff we've been watching. What kind of stuff have you been watching lately?
Watching on TV. Well, I'm not really watching anything new. My wife and I, we just finished Psych, which, by the way, I
Nice.
think about 8 months ago we put out there, whether or not we should pick up Psych or uh, what's the one with the
Monk.
detective Monk, yeah.
Monk.
And you and your wife both said Monk, and we'll have to take you up on borrowing the Monk DVDs. But we loved Psych. Psych was just such a phenomenally well done show, and it was
Mhm.
actually we sat there and just laughed our rear ends off for the last episode. You've seen it all, right?
Oh yeah, we had the whole series. Did you watch the musical at all?
Oh yeah, unfortunately. I thought it was really. I didn't like the musical side to it, but it
It was
was
just funny.
well, and it was hard for us because we watched it on Netflix, and
Hmm.
so they throw the musical on at the end of season 7, but
Hmm.
it actually takes place about 6 or 7 episodes prior
Yeah.
to the end of season 7. So we had no idea why everything was still going the way it was. We're like, no, this wasn't supposed to happen this way. We thought it was another one of their strange theme episodes, which it was. It just really
Yeah.
wasn't timed real well.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they said originally that was going to be the season 7 premiere, but because of the way they ended season 6, they couldn't do that, and then it ended up just getting pushed back and aired in between season 7 and 8. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And yeah, I mean, I agree that it was definitely like, okay, obviously this took place at a different time because of all the things that happened in the latter half of season 7. But
Yeah, there were big plot points that had just completely been erased. We thought it was a flashback or something for a bit, but
yeah.
it was fun. We got into the last couple episodes. The episode prior to the last episode, the penultimate episode, was kind of strange because my wife is not a big fan of zombies, and it was a very
Mhm.
zombie centric episode. So, I was proud of her. She sat through it and didn't have any nightmares. But yeah, it was not her normal uh, TV show to watch. She definitely stays away from that stuff. But yeah, we enjoyed
Yeah.
it. So I think our next step is going to be into 24. We got about halfway through the series, and so I think we're in season 6 or something like that. We're going to start over. Um, she's writing some suspenseful thriller novels right now, so I think she needs a little bit more inspiration. And nobody's better at killing people than Jack Bauer, so she'll get all the inspiration she needs.
Did you guys? Well, I'm assuming you went and saw episode 7.
We have not.
Oh.
And let me tell you why. I do not believe that there needed to be an episode 7. I believe that the story was told, and I may just boycott it. I know all the spoilers. I actually went and searched for them so nobody would spoil it for me. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'll probably watch it when it comes out on DVD. But I thought the story was told, and same thing with a completely non-gamer related, but the book To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm not sure if you've ever read it, but they just came out with a sequel to that, and that book came out in the 60s. But the story was told. I wasn't interested in finding out what the next step would be. So, yeah, no, I never saw it, and I'm not really missing it all that much.
But it is really good. I mean, it is a return to form, and it's well worth watching.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked Jar Jar, so maybe if they had more Jar Jar, I'd watch it. Everybody gives Jar Jar a bad rap. Okay, he deserves a bad rap, but still. Yeah, we'll check it out though when it comes out on DVD, and part of it too is we're so far away from being able to see it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of our listeners realize, but the closest movie theater we have is 90 miles away for me, and 120 miles away for you, and that's in Valdez. And then to get to the other ones,
Valdez has a theater.
Valdez does have a theater. It's not a very big one, and it's part of their civic center. But yeah, they do have a theater, and they get all the movies. They had episode 1 the first opening day, or episode 7 the opening day, but it's not like the theaters that you get in. I think it's better than the theater in Wasilla. So unless you go all the way into Anchorage.
Well, the old theater in Wasilla was a piece of crap, but the one that they built a few years ago or a couple years ago is really, really nice, actually.
Where's it at?
It's right next to Walmart.
Okay.
But yeah, I was actually surprised because I think it was a couple summers ago. I wanted to go see the new Captain America, and because Megan was in Palmer for Carrie Ann's baby shower, and so I went to that old theater, and it was closed down, and I was trying to figure out where the new theater was, and then I found out that it was down by Walmart, and I went down there, and I was actually really surprised because it's a very nice theater. The tickets are cheaper than they are in Anchorage, and I really like going there. I mean, if I have a choice, apart from like going to Cotonou to see a movie in Anchorage, I definitely would choose that theater.
I'll have to check it out next time. Next time I'm in Wasilla. We're gonna try to do most everything in Wasilla instead of Anchorage because Anchorage sucks so much. So we'll see what we can do. What are you guys watching these days?
Well, we watched all the Star Wars movies, except for episode 1. We did the Machete order, which is watching episodes 4 and 5, and then watching episodes 2 and 3 as if they're a flashback, and then going into episode 6. And then, of course, we went and saw episode 7 in the theater while Megan's parents watched around. Right? Yeah, we skipped episode 1.
Good man.
Because the reality is that it's completely unnecessary. I mean, there's really, apart from having Darth Maul, which is cool, there's almost nothing in there that's really necessary to the story.
Yeah, Darth Maul. If Darth Maul would have been what Darth Maul could have been, it would have been a good movie. But his one line and his acrobatic sword fight wasn't enough to redeem what was otherwise a terrible movie.
Yeah. Well, and another thing is that watching it in the order that watching in the Machete order, it preserves really all of the twists, and in some ways actually makes them better. Like finding out that Luke and Leia are brother and sister, it's a much better twist, if you see it at the end of episode 3 instead of in episode 6. I really thought. I mean, it's just because of the way it's presented,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I'll have to try that. My boys are always up for another Star Wars marathon, so my poor wife won't know what to do with herself, but yeah, that's her loss.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to eventually showing him to Rand, but obviously right now he's little.
Give him a few years. He'll start to get into it here by the time he's about 5 or 6. My youngest, well, all of them, by the time they were 5, started to really enjoy the lightsaber, the Luke Skywalker good stuff. Um, so yeah, by the time he's 5 years old, we did it. We started ours about that age with Star Wars, and yeah, I think Rand would probably enjoy it too, right about that age. Of course, you have to convince his mom to let him watch, big bad sword fights at 5 years old. But that's parenting for
Oh,
you.
it won't be a problem. She will not have any problem with that. I'm positive. We've actually talked about it. We were saying like around 5 years old, we show those movies to Rand.
You gotta love parenting when you're trying to when your most important decisions are when do we show my kids Star Wars? Parenting at its finest.
Yeah. Well, other than Star Wars movies, we watched series 22 of Top Gear, which was also excellent. And of course, it's the last one that'll have Clarkson, May, and Hammond, since they're now going to be doing their own thing through Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And we watched the 3 Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, which I had forgotten how much Spider-Man 3 was a piece of crap. But it really was. It was just bad. I mean, like, I liked it fine the first time I saw it, but watching it this time, I was just like, man, they really just did not do well with this movie. And obviously, it was because Sam Raimi was forced into adding Venom and stuff, and so because of that, he ended up just kind of taking it out on Sony Pictures by making it a crappy movie.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife.
But other than that, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, my wife was just saying the other day she wanted to watch the old Spider-Man movies, not the newer ones. And but she did. She was very specific in saying that she did not want to watch the third one because it was terrible. So yeah, I can respect that.
Yeah. But we also been watching more of Cheers. I mean, this is probably our 3rd or 4th watch through. We've been watching through Cheers and Frasier every year for the past several years, and still absolutely hilarious show. I mean, I'm really impressed at how well both of these shows hold up in terms of comedy. And I mean, yeah, there's some crude humor here and there, and there's more in this than there is in Frasier, but for the most part, it's good, clean humor, and it's just really, really funny, really, really well written, which is amazing because it's from the 80s. So I mean, you'd think that it would date itself a lot more than it does, and I mean, yeah, it does date itself in many ways, but the humor is timeless for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of those old shows, as a family, we're watching through Family Matters, which I haven't seen since 1991 when it first came out, and I've been very pleasantly surprised at just how good it is, and how even today, in 2016, my kids are getting the humor and they're understanding it. And it's cheesy by today's standards because every episode ends with harp music as the family comes together and has their little heartwarming. Oh, we really love each other. Even though you just drove a station wagon through the front door. Fix everything in 30 minutes, no matter how bad it is. But it's been good. And, I think you even saw on Facebook the other day that I posted that there's a scene in season 3 where Steve Urkel makes a very clear and concise profession of faith. And I was just blown away at how it doesn't play at all. I mean, it is outright, downright biblical. This is a profession of faith, and that's stuff you don't see today. It's something that you can watch as a family and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, how are you watching it? Is it just DVDs, or is it actually up on Netflix or something?
No, it's Amazon Prime.
Oh,
So I
okay.
buy we bought it. We buy each season,
Oh, okay.
but Amazon Prime, they've got a lot of free stuff like Netflix does. Like we're watching. I own all the Stargate SG-1. I own every Stargate that's ever been made. But instead of throwing a new disc in every time, my son just puts it up on Amazon and we watch it that way. So between
Yeah.
Amazon and Netflix, we don't have need for cable TV anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we got rid of our satellite, I think 2 or 3 years ago, just because we weren't watching it enough, and we haven't really missed it. I mean, we have lots of DVDs in our collection and Blu-rays, and um, all sorts of stuff.
Until your
Speaking
wife's
of which,
favorite football team
we
ends up in the Super Bowl.
yeah, yeah, and then of course, obviously, Megan's really excited about the Broncos going to the Super Bowl. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I actually watched pretty recently, we already had the first 5 seasons of Big Bang Theory, but they were really cheap during like Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals. I mean, they were like I think $12 a piece, and one of them was only $8. So we picked up the remaining seasons that are out, and we watched through the rest of those. And we actually found that rewatching the series, even though the first 3 seasons are definitely still the best written, um, later seasons are better on the second viewing than they were the first time around. So
I
we were
like it.
pleasantly surprised with that.
That's my throw on in the background. It's if I'm playing a game and I want to have background noise but don't want to pay
Mhm.
attention, it's either Big
Yeah,
Bang Theory or
exactly.
MASH. And
Yeah,
right now it's Big Bang Theory. I'm halfway through season 8. I haven't seen any of the new stuff yet, but once that's done, and then I'll go
yeah,
back to MASH season 1, and I just kind of flip through that.
yeah. Frasier and Cheers are shows like that for us, and so is Psych. Um, I'm trying to think if there are any others. Another really good one. Well, Parks and Rec is, of course, another great one for that.
Oh yeah.
Um, and have you ever watched Brooklyn Nine Nine?
Yes, I really enjoy Brooklyn Nine Nine. There's
Yeah.
just something. It's such a diverse cast, and it's got
Mhm.
humor that hits on a lot of different levels.
Mhm.
And Andy Samberg is just amazing. He's such a great comedian. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's funny because before I was convinced to actually watch it, I anything else I'd seen Andy Samberg in, I just thought he was obnoxious. But John and Scotty really convinced me that Brooklyn Nine Nine was worth watching, and I'm so glad they did because it is one of my favorites now.
Yeah,
I mean, like you said, it's extremely funny and just really well done.
it is.
Um, but yeah, and let's see here. Yeah, I guess that's everything. Oh, we watched MythBusters. Where I mean, although something strange is I noticed that the Discovery Store no longer sells the seasons on DVD. Like they
Hmm.
only have collections now, which I
Hmm.
mean makes me happy that we bought them when we did because we bought the first 8 seasons or the first 7 seasons, something like that, in a pack, and then we got season 8 and 9 separately. But all of that, we got pretty good deal on the seasons, and I think I'm really glad we have it because it's something good to watch through. And by the time you get through all these episodes, you go back to the old myths, and you're not necessarily going to remember exactly what the result was.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of rewatchability with that. Plus, of course, I think it's great to have programming that actually shows real science in action and in a fun way. And I think that could be something really cool for Rand when he's older.
Our kids really, really like it. We kind of go in spurts with it. You're talking about buying all the DVDs. One thing I learned with kids is as careful as I try to be with protecting DVDs, and they're fragile, it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. And so we've actually gotten to the point where I don't purchase a DVD or a Blu-ray anymore. 100% of our entertainment purchases are on what's that thing that I was Amazon. So we get
Yeah.
everything. We buy the seasons on Amazon. You buy them cheaper; they're usually $14 as opposed to $20, and you can get the seasons. And
Mm-hmm.
so it makes it really, really nice because we can just go on and we can see it. We have all of our Christmas movies. We go through about the same 10 Christmas movies every year as a family, and we always know where they're at. We don't have to look for them, and the kids can't ruin them. And eventually, if the power goes out, we're not going to be able to watch DVDs anyway. So it works out really well for us. And man, by the time Rand starts moving around and pulling things out of containers and stuff, that's what did it for me. I went from DVDs to digital media because my kids just destroy everything. And there's no matter how hard I try, man, the kids are good at one thing, and that's destroying things and being cute. How many onesies
I mean,
has Rand destroyed just by having blowouts in his diaper?
He hasn't destroyed any. I mean, there's only been one like really big blowout, but I got it under warm water with some soap and cleaned it as best as I could, hung it up, and it was fine the next day. And a couple other things that he got kind of messy. We have some OxyClean, so I put it in a bag with some hot water and OxyClean and washed them, and they were just fine.
Yeah, we were never that good. We just threw it away. Some of those outfits, it was no. We had so many of them because people always give you baby clothes. We're just like, nope, we're done with it.
I mean, well, we never had it as bad as what you've told me about. Like when I think you said it was Nemo that had it like going all the way up his back and stuff, and it's never been that bad.
Up his back, down his arms, down his legs. Oh, parenthood.
Yeah, the funny thing though was the one time that he had sort of a blowout. I mean, the worst one he had, he wasn't crying about it at all. I mean, like he gets a dirty diaper, he almost never cries about it. And most of the time, it's just like we can tell because there's just a little bit of a smell. I mean, it's obviously not really stinky like it'll be once he actually starts eating real food. Yeah. But, obviously with breast milk, he's, it's not that stinky. It's just enough of a scent to where, there's that, or, you hear the noise when he's filling his diaper.
Now, I got to know, now that you're a new dad, have your listeners ever heard the Frozen Gamers podcast sit and talk about baby crap? New
I don't
experiences
think so,
for everybody.
But the thing is, we have, because of the fact that John works for sanitation, we've called him the Poop Smith, and we've talked a little bit about some of that nastiness occasionally. So honestly, baby poop is nowhere near as bad as the stuff that we were talking about before.
Yeah, and baby poop at your stage is not bad. I don't care what people say; it gets a whole lot worse once they start eating.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Now, don't tell your wife this, but I only changed 5 diapers on my last kid, so it is possible to get away with it. Just don't tell her I said that.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter anyway because I mean, you and I have talked about this before that even though it's really not a big deal changing diapers, it really isn't. I've changed literally probably hundreds of diapers by this point, and it never really has been that big of an issue. Just clean it up as best as I can, which has never really been a problem, even when it's really full, and then wash my hands and good to go. Yeah.
I never had a problem with it. My wife just always had my kids, so she was the one doing it. I would have. She just never asked me to, and I wasn't going to offer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've obviously talked quite a while just about all this random stuff. So we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about our top 5 games for 2015. And then we'll also get into some news.
Okay.
All right. So, this is just more a formality. If you want to get anything to drink or whatever, go for it. Because I always do music in the breaks.
Oh, okay.
I'll edit all this out later. Yeah, we're still live right now, but of course we don't have anyone watching. It's just basically. Like if whenever we recorded in the apartment, I would just pause it and then we'd do whatever. But in this case, just keep it going, and then when we're ready, we'll start back up. And then when I'm actually putting it all together, then it'll be pretty easy to fix.
Okay, well, I'm going to hit the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
It's weird having this whole church to yourself. It's about, 10,000 square feet, and I'm the only person in the building. It's about the size of Glen Ellen Chapel. Okay, well, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. All right, we are back. In case you forgot, you've been listening to the Frozen Gamers Podcast, episode 86. So Scott and I are going to continue the show this evening, going into our top 5 games for the year 2015. Obviously, it's a little bit late, but due to scheduling conflicts, we're just getting to it now. So, Scott, why don't you give me your top 5 games for the year 2015?
Well, I got to start with Dying Light. Have you played Dying Light?
I don't really care for horror games, so no.
I didn't either. And that was another one where, because I'm not a big zombie guy, but it was such a well-made game. It's more of a parkour game. And so the running and the jumping and it's not just, walking around shooting zombies like you get in Left 4 Dead or Resident Evil. I mean, it's an action game from start to finish, and it also really freaked me out. I mean, there were a couple times where I had my heart going, where I was running around at night. So, Dying Light was probably my best game of 2015. Another game that I absolutely loved and adored, and still play when I know I got a good solid 6 or 8 hours, I'll pick up and just start a new city in Cities Skylines. Came out in May of 2015. And in my opinion, it took the idea of the SimCity or the SimCity model and took it to a whole new level. You can also mod it. There are some mods on Steam which make for it cleans up some of the things. There's an annoying little bird that pops up as their version of Twitter, and you can control how often that comes up or what it shows. You can have it automatically control the sanitation, which would be important if John were around. But that's a big part of the game. I mean, it's very deep on every level, and I like the way you can scroll from a global perspective all the way down to one car, and you can follow one car and find out where their home is, and it names all of them, and you can set up names for neighborhoods and stuff. Great game. Let's see. I also picked up StarCraft 2: Legacy of the Void, and I have to say that they ran with it. Blizzard has done just phenomenally well with the story. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it is in my opinion by far the best StarCraft that's ever come out. Skyforge was an MMO that I played for a bit, and as far as MMOs in 2015 goes, I would have to say that people need to check out Skyforge. Have you ever heard of it?
I think I've heard of it, but I'm not really familiar with what it is.
It's free to play, and if you're into MMOs and you kind of have the game mode where you're kind of set into what your character is, you're either a tank or you're a DPS, or some of the newer games they allow it to be a little bit more fluid, but your character is pretty much set from the time you start. With Skyforge, anytime, and even in the middle of battles, you can switch up how your character is. So if you need to become a healer, if you've trained in some of the healing stuff, you can switch your proficiencies right in the middle of things that are going on. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I got in early on in the beta of that, and
had some friends that were in it, and wasn't able to continue on just because of time. And again, being a parent, it's hard to be in an MMO because I can't just pause the game, which you really got to you got to be able to do when you're a parent, because life comes up and you can't just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm stuck in an instance and I can't come and help you out right now. And then I got to say, my biggest game of the year, and as much as I hated the predecessors, Fallout 4. It's the game that's taken up most of my time, and I just love the ability to mod. I'm running about 30 mods right now, and you can do everything from the way that you're able to scrap stuff in your settlements. You can clean it up the way you want. You can change everything. You can set up your own weapons, and you can also increase the difficulty. I cheat when I play Fallout, so I'll give myself as many bottle caps as I need, because I hate wanting something and not having enough of it. But I also cheat in I make the bosses, or make the mobs more difficult, so I'm not just running around shooting everything willy-nilly, but I still have a challenge, because the mobs, with the modifications that I put on, they're able to get better than you faster than you, and so it's much more of a challenge. It's a lot of fun. So that's where I'd go Dying Light, Cities Skylines, StarCraft, Skyforge as an MMO, and then I'll round it all out with Fallout 4.
All right, very cool. Well, my games almost all Nintendo, mostly because I didn't play a whole lot of games released this year that weren't released on Nintendo platforms. I mean, if I was going to include games that came out in 2014 or earlier, then I would have more variety here. But all of these games are still excellent, deserve spots. So my number 5 game is Splatoon for Wii U.
Heard that was great.
It really is. And the great thing about it is that it's something that anyone can pick up and play. And I am disappointed at the lack of really any local multiplayer. That's one thing that I just really wish they would have, because Nintendo always has such great local multiplayer. But even still, the online multiplayer is fun, and because there's no voice chat, it's something that kids can play without a problem. And it is, I mean, it's just really, really fun, really interesting. Basically territory. You cover a territory with paint, or technically with ink, I guess. And whoever covers the most of that territory by the time the time runs out is the winning team. And it also has a really great single player. I was actually really pleasantly surprised at how good the single player was, because I was afraid that since it was developed second, that would be not as good. But it has a lot of interesting concepts, and the boss battles are so much fun. Plus, the final boss is legitimately challenging and just really interesting compared to a lot of other ones I've done. But yeah, and that's one your boys would probably really enjoy. And I mean, the one thing that I have to criticize about the game, though, is that I really don't think the matchmaking is great online, because there's really no telling who you'll get paired up against. I mean, instead of keeping it to where people are all similar levels, like within 5 levels of each other, sometimes if you go in, start off, you might end up paired against someone who's level 50. And while the levels don't change the damage output, they do change the kind of gear that you can get, and so that can make a difference. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't ever beat someone who's a higher level, but obviously those people tend to be more experienced, and so the challenge can vary greatly from that standpoint. But it's still a really good online multiplayer and really good single player. A lot of fun.
I'll check it out.
And then my number 4 choice is Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D for the 3DS. I played it pretty much entirely on the new, which has improved 3D and a second the C-Stick, which is basically for controlling the camera and that sort of thing. It's the game itself, they did so much great stuff with it, because I mean, Majora's Mask, I always really enjoyed the game as it was, but they just made a number of improvements. I mean, graphically, for one, it looks considerably better than the original, even without the 3D turned on. With the 3D turned on, it is beautiful. It's been a while since I played it because I was early this year, but overall, I mean, like, I really think it is the definitive version of Majora's Mask. And of course, being able to actually control the camera makes such a huge difference in that game because, you couldn't do that in the original game. And it was just, hitting the Z button to center the camera. Whereas this one, you actually can independently control it, either if you have a new 3DS with the C stick or if you have a CirclePad Pro for original 3DS. I mean, I think the game would play just fine without it because, it worked fine on the Nintendo 64, but it is really nice being able to rotate the camera. It really, really helps. But yeah, absolutely fantastic remake. I wrote a review of that for Geeks Worldwide. I think I gave it like a 9.2 or 9.3, something like that back in the day. So
Okay.
very, very good game. My next one, my number 3 choice would be Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, which is a new 3DS port of Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii. And it really, I mean, they did have to downgrade the textures in order to maintain a constant 3D effect with a constant frame rate. But the game is so huge. And the fact that they fit it onto a handheld, it is just fantastic. And with the 3D turned on, it really makes up for the downgraded textures. And I had never played the original because it had a limited run on Wii in the US. And typically, I mean, up until recently, you couldn't get a copy for less than like $80, $90 of the Wii version. And so I really, really
limited run.
Yeah, it was a very limited run because originally Nintendo of America wasn't even going to bring it over, but they decided to bring it over because, I mean, after enough people got on them about it, kept saying, we want to play this game. So they brought it over in a limited run and made it a GameStop exclusive. So nowadays it's difficult to get a hard copy of it at all in the US. And the localization is the European localization. So it's all British voice acting. But it's really, really, really good. The story is, without question, one of the best I've ever experienced in any RPG.
Okay.
And, I mean, yeah, it's just a really fun game. And the good thing is, I'm sure that at some point, the Wii version will become available to purchase on the Wii U eShop, so that it'll be playable. Not just on the Wii U on the TV, but also on the gamepad screen. So, and then it'll only be like $20 instead of more expensive.
Right.
And I mean, you could get a hard copy now of the Wii version probably for around $50, $60, which is much better than it was. But at the time, I couldn't, and I really wanted to play the 3DS version, the new 3DS version, and so I did. And for any of our listeners, anyone who's heard me talk about the game or has just heard things about Xenoblade Chronicles in general, it really deserves every bit of praise that it's gotten. I mean, it's not a perfect game. There are definitely some flaws, but overall, the game is so good. This gameplay is excellent. The story is amazing. The music is amazing. And it was really one of my favorite games this year. So then my number 2, just barely edging out Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, is Xenoblade Chronicles X for Wii U. And I talked about that earlier, of course. I absolutely loved the game. The story was weak compared to the previous game, but the gameplay was overall better. Of course, because of the fact that it's on more powerful hardware, it's a better looking game. And it has more gameplay. I mean, more playability, I think. Like, I finished the story, I think I had about 75 hours, somewhere around there. And I continued playing for another 30 hours. Wow. And I could keep playing more if I wanted to, because there's definitely more stuff to do. And the nice thing is that the gameplay continues after you finish the story. So there's still plenty more you can do. and I only stopped just because I wanted to play some other games as well. But
Right.
I could easily probably put another 30, 40 hours into the game without much difficulty.
Yeah, you gotta like that.
And my number one game of the year has to be Destiny: The Taken King. And for people who have been listening, it probably doesn't really come as a surprise because between myself and John and Scotty, we talked a ton about that game. Well, just Destiny in general. But since Destiny itself was a 2014 release and The Taken King was a 2015 release, and The Taken King improved so much of vanilla of what we had compared with vanilla Destiny or even with the expansions, it's easily my number one game of the year. Over 400 hours between February and November.
Wow.
And I mean, that's as it seems like it's a lot, but it really wasn't. I mean, there are people who put thousands of hours into it, so it's not that bad. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely been playing less since I started playing again this year, and it was excellent. But yeah, my game of the year.
Excellent.
And I'm pretty sure that John and Scotty would say the same thing since they didn't play a whole lot else in 2015. And, whether or not you listeners will get a chance to hear what they had to say will depend on whether or not we can schedule it to actually have them join us sometime. But most likely you'll just have to take my word for it, and I'll check and see if they at least want to share something. So.
Now let me just throw out a little rant here about Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't want to point fingers necessarily, but again, having kids, my gamepad ended up smashed. Which you can still use the old controllers to control just about everything, but you can't get into actually, like, I wanted to change the network, and you can't get into setup on anything but the gamepad. And they don't sell replacement gamepads. So if your gamepad breaks, you might be able to find one on eBay, but we all know how dangerous that is. You can't just go to Nintendo or Amazon and buy a gamepad from Nintendo. And so it is either continue to use the handheld controllers, which is what we're doing, or you buy an entire new system for $350. I'm even, while you're talking here.
The system's less than that now, but.
What? No, I'm looking at it right now. No, the systems are $350.
Well, if you go through Amazon, yeah, but otherwise they're $300, and they usually come with at least one, if not two games.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, because Amazon doesn't sell the systems directly. I mean, they don't get them from Nintendo for whatever reason they were having issues, but yeah, if you go anywhere else, yeah,
it's frustrating.
But
that you
also,
can't buy a new gamepad.
Did you call Nintendo?
No, I didn't. I didn't spend the time to do that.
You should, because their customer service is excellent, and in reality, you might. Well, when did you buy the Wii U?
It's been a couple years, but at this point,
Okay.
I did a bad thing and tried to fix it myself. Not such a bright idea.
Well,
so
even if you can't do that, you can probably talk to them and you can get a replacement part, because they have replacement parts on their site.
Yeah.
For all sorts of things, and I imagine that the gamepad probably would be.
Yeah, I'll give them a call. At this point, we're able to do most everything with it, and the kids are able to play all their games and stuff, which is fine. I mean, at this point they're mostly playing old console games anyway on the Wii emulator that comes with it, so it's not a big deal. We haven't bought new games for it, but I'll wait until the next generation comes out, because I don't know when they're coming out. But I'm sure it's about time for Wii U's next generation to come out sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that a little bit and when we get to news, but one thing is that, like, there are some games that pretty much require the gamepad, so I would say it's definitely worth looking into. I mean, I don't know exactly what they'll charge for a new one, honestly, but I think you could probably find a pretty good deal. And like I said, Nintendo's customer service is really helpful, and most likely you'd be able to get a replacement one without paying an arm and a leg.
Well, I'll give them a
Hopefully.
call and see. I was just frustrated that I couldn't just pop onto their page, and I would have spent $150 on it at the time because it was when we had PFD, but never happened. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what their next system is, and we'll go that way when the time comes.
Okay. Well, real quickly before we get into news, I don't have a whole lot, but how about we just real quick mention like what your most anticipated games are for this year?
Let me hold on just a second. Let me bring something up here. See what? Oh yeah. '26 most anticipated, because I know there's a couple. Tom Clancy's. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready. Whenever you want to go.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I got to say that the biggest game I'm looking forward to in 2016 is Tom Clancy's The Division. Everything I've seen about that just looks absolutely stellar. It looks like it's going to be unbeatable. Hopefully my systems will be able to run it because I'll be getting it as soon as I can. Of course, what is it? 3 days from now is the new Tomb Raider coming out on the 28th, and I was actually looking at Steam. Apparently, it's not going to be available on Steam, but Dishonored 2 is coming out in 2016, and that's going to be big. I am looking forward to that probably more than any game that's come out in the last 10 years, just because I loved everything they did with Dishonored. So I would say Dishonored and the Division. I don't know. Have you seen the gameplay for Division?
I've seen screenshots and such. I'm honestly skeptical that it's actually coming out this year, considering how many times they've delayed it already.
Yeah. Well, and I'd rather them delay it and put out a completed game than go all Batman Arkham Knight on us and leave us in the lurch with a completely uncompleted game and nobody knowing what to do about anything. And whenever a company does that, they really rake their customers over the coals. So I'd rather them have it come out next year than have to continue to wait for it. But I'm hoping it comes out this year because I've got more or less and less time, I should say, to play games, and so I have to be really picky and really particular in the games that are coming that I'm gonna pick up. But you've got a PC that can run all these big games now. So what is it that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. Well, let's see here. So far as that, I know are coming out this year. Definitely Rise of the Tomb Raider, which, thanks to buying an NVIDIA card, well, I mean, thanks to that being part of my PC build, I got a free copy of Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Nice.
So I just have to wait until it's available to preload, and then I'll get that loaded up and be ready to play that probably on the day it comes out. And I'm really glad that I was able to get that free code, because otherwise I was just going to be waiting a while until it went on sale, because I really want to play it, but originally I was just going to wait until it came out on PS4 in the fall, and now I don't have to. So I'm excited about that.
That's going to be awesome.
But then other games I'm looking forward to, as far as PC goes, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I really liked the original Mirror's Edge. I thought it was a lot of fun, but there were definitely things that they could have done better. Mm-hmm. And it looks like, from everything I've read about Catalyst, it really addresses all of the problems with the original. And of course, this one I'll actually be able to run, really well, instead of having lots of slowdown like I did when I ran the original on my laptop.
All right.
So I'm excited about that. Plus, I think this one's supposed to be more open world, which will make it even better, I think.
That's saying a lot, because wasn't the original Mirror's Edge a very open world? No,
not really. I mean, it was open-ish, but I mean, it was still like mission structure, and
okay.
You still have a lot of boundaries, where you could go and where you couldn't go, and this one I really like the fact that they actually make it possible to. I mean, you don't have to deal with guns so much. Because what I wanted to do when I was playing the original was never use a gun at all and just run away from everything, try to avoid the enemies, because that was kind of the point in my mind. But there were just some points where it was very difficult to take down an enemy with a gun, and there were so many enemies with guns. And eventually, when I got towards like the last third of the game, I just gave up and started using guns because it was just way too difficult to do it without. But this one, from what I've heard, they pretty much eliminated guns altogether. And so if you take on enemies, you can do it hand to hand. And if there are guns, they're just nowhere near as many. So you're not in that position where you basically have to use them or, have to take out people with guns. But beyond PC stuff, there's a couple other games I'm looking forward to. One is Uncharted 4, Thief's End for PS4. So I really loved the first 3 Uncharted games. And this one is looking like they're going to make some good improvements to the game. Plus, of course, it still maintains, the great characters and story that the previous games had. And having the PS4 controller, because it's so much better than the DualShock 3, it's going to be better to control. And I mean, they also give you more options. Like, you don't always have to fight enemies. You can actually avoid them and sneak around to get away from them and that sort of thing, which I really like. Because it's like in the other games, Nathan Drake is like this really nice guy, but technically he's also a mass murderer, even if he is just self-defense. So,
but just a slight line there.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to continue on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, those games are really, really good, and really like the characters. Of course, Norland North is an excellent voice actor. So, and Troy Baker is also going to be one of the main characters in it. So.
Nice.
Anyway, and then beyond that, there's the new Zelda game for Wii U, which looks absolutely gorgeous from what we've seen, and pushed back. And I think it's a good time to push it back to. I mean, you're pushing it back to this year, especially because this year's the 30th anniversary of Zelda.
Is it really?
So,
yeah. 1986. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, of course, hopefully we'll get some more details on it soon. My guess is probably around E3 is when they'll really show us a lot more.
So we're looking at
and then the last
release.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm assuming. They haven't really said anything, but I'd say it's pretty safe to say that it's going to be that late.
Okay.
Probably be their holiday game, and that'll be how they make lots of money during the holiday.
Yeah, it'll be the one that everybody wants somewhere right around Christmas.
Yeah. The last one I'm really looking forward to has not even actually been announced yet, and so I'm not 100% positive it's coming out, but I think there's a good chance, and that is an HD remaster of Final Fantasy XII. I really, really loved the PS2 game, and Square Enix has re-released and remastered basically all of the Final Fantasies, all the mainline ones anyway, up to this point, between PC and consoles and phones and stuff like that. And so I think 12 has a really good chance of getting an HD remaster, especially because it's the 10th anniversary of the game. And so it's basically just kind of the waiting game for them to actually officially announce it. But I'm hoping they're going to bring it to Vita, because I really liked the HD remaster of 10 on Vita. I just thought it worked really well on a handheld, and it looked really great on the OLED screen. So I'm hoping that they'll do the same with 12, and I think there's a good chance of that.
Yeah. Now, as far as Final Fantasy goes, if it's Final Fantasy, how can there be 12
Final Fantasies. Shouldn't this be like 12th from the Final Fantasy, or the first one was 12th from the final, but now they're up to like 14, aren't they?
Yeah, they've done 14, not counting spin-offs, and the 15th one is supposedly coming out this year. Though I'll believe it when I see it, because yeah. Do you know the original story, or are you just pulling my leg?
No, I'm just pulling your leg. I don't know. I've never gotten into any of the Final Fantasy games, so I don't know the first thing about it.
Well, basically, when Squaresoft, which is what they used to be before they joined with Enix several years ago, when Squaresoft released Final Fantasy, they pretty much figured it was going to be their very last game. And
really?
This was, back on the NES. And so that's why they named it Final Fantasy. And, of course, it ended up being a success, and they stuck with the name.
Okay. Hey, you got to respect that. It kept them in business. Of course, joining Enix did too, because Square Enix is one of the bigger, better producers right now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So yeah, that's all the games that I'm looking forward to this year that I know for sure about. Beyond that, I mean, there's little things here and there, but most of them are just small ones, and there's probably some things I've forgotten about as well. But I imagine as we hear more about things and get confirmation that things are actually coming out this year, which I wouldn't be surprised if a number of games get delayed, then we'll have more to say.
That's the one thing that I think is becoming more and more consistent with games, is developers are learning that it is not worth the time, not worth the heartache to rush a game until it's complete. I mean, they can keep it in beta for a long time. And, a lot of people, I know a lot of gamers hate the way Steam does all the early access games and things like that. But, I got to say, it gives developers a chance to get their games out there and being played, and to really do a long beta. And that's what early access is. It's a paid beta. And it gives them a chance to really fix all the bugs. And I think if gamers go into an early access game realizing that it's not complete yet, that they're getting an incomplete copy, but they're able to be there and see the game developed through the entire process, then they're going to have a better experience with the game. But it goes all the way back to World of Warcraft. When WoW came out, and I know you didn't play WoW at all, did you?
No.
No, yeah. When it came out, it was an incomplete game, and all these other MMOs came out, and gamers would howl and complain that, look, this isn't done. This is, there are these bugs and those bugs, and everybody was comparing it to WoW. Well, WoW has 10 million subscribers for a reason, and it's because they have constantly had the opportunity to fix those bugs. And it was so incomplete when it came out. Even when I started playing it, it was vanilla, and it was 2 years old by the time I started playing it. And it was still incomplete then. Games are never really complete. That's why they're patching them all the time. That's why they're doing DLC. I'm not a big fan of DLC. If I'm going to pay $60 for a game, which I very rarely do, but if I do, I expect to get a lot of hours of playtime. And even the games that I love, and Dishonored is you can only get 30 hours out of Dishonored. It's on rails. It's a very linear progression. 30 hours is a long game time. So it's something to be aware of when people buy games. And I would rather see a game developer push it out than put something out that's not complete, or put it on a paid early access. And that way people realize that it's not a complete game yet and they're still working on it.
Agreed.
Now my headset just beeped in my ear, so I think it's about ready to die. It's a wireless, so I can't go too much longer.
Okay, well let's try to wrap this up then. As far as news goes, the only thing that I think is really worth mentioning at this point, there's two quick things. One is Amazon Prime is now going to start doing. Well, actually, they've already started. Doing something very similar to the Gamers Club at Best Buy, where they give 20% off new releases.
Nice.
I think that's pretty cool. Now, I don't buy a whole lot of physical games anymore, just because of, if I really want to play a game, sometimes I'm just not patient enough to wait for it to get here, especially with the way the Postal Service goes sometimes, or when they do it where it switches between it starts with UPS or FedEx and then switches to the postal service, and it takes ridiculously long. I had a couple of bad experiences in 2014 and 2015 with things taking 3 to 4 weeks to get here, and it was just so I don't do it as much anymore.
You're mostly then talking about console games, right? Because with PC,
Yeah, I mean,
even when you buy from Amazon, they'll give you a key and you can download it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I mean, you can buy digital versions as well through Amazon, at least for some of those. I think they started doing Nintendo games as well.
Okay.
Although I don't know if they give the discounts on digital versions or not. But I mean, I still think it's pretty cool because I mean that is a good incentive. I mean, getting 20% off a brand new game is a good deal. And I mean, with Steam, obviously, sometimes I'll just wait until the game is 50% off or more. But with Nintendo and that sort of thing, sometimes it's nice to just be able to get a really good deal on a game I want to play.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good for Amazon to really start to see gaming as a viable industry or a viable market to get into. I mean, they own everything else. I mean, you can get groceries from Amazon, so why not get into this multi-billion-dollar industry? So I can respect them for doing that, and I'll probably still do most of my shopping through Steam because it's so convenient to have everything in one place. And with the newer Steam systems, with I forget exactly what it's called, but I can save a game on my computer at home and pull it up on my computer here, as long as it's not modded, and I've got that got it saved in the cloud, which really does help Steam's case. Once you start to mod it, then all bets are off because a modded game is going to break from system to system.
Yeah. The only other piece of news I have here is, I mean, there's basically been no details yet on Nintendo's codename NX, whether it's a console, handheld, a mixture of the two, what exactly it is, and they're going to talk about it sometime this year. But according to a supposed leak, and we can take it with a grain of salt, really, supposedly NX is going to be both a handheld and a console. Released in 2 separate parts, and the first part is going to be a handheld released this year, and the second part is going to be the console released next year. And
with
the leaks
compatibility,
there's really not much of any details, but of course at this point Nintendo hasn't said anything either, so this is all purely speculation.
Okay.
But if this is the case, from the sound of it, I mean, what they've said. The rumor said that it would be $200 for the handheld, which I think is a good price, especially if it ends up being, similar tech to what's going to be in the console, or has the ability to play the same games between the two systems. And they haven't said anything about the console.
Well, I think it's time for Nintendo to try to break out of the family market and into the actual gamer market. It does have some good games, but most of Nintendo's player base are families. It's just where they sell a lot of games. A lot of people are going to be playing them, but they've never done, at least not in a long time, have they done real well in keeping up to date with, the sports games or the Call of Duty games. They don't have the same playability with those that you do on the PS4 or the Xbox One. So I think it's about time that Nintendo kind of takes that step forward into the actual gamers market, because the people who are buying Wii U's are not hardcore gamers.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I think the real issue is that most of the people who are interested in Wii U are people who are already Nintendo fans, and they buy the consoles probably primarily for Nintendo games. But like when I bought it, I bought a Wii U pretty close to launch, and the first game I bought for it was Arkham City Armored Edition, which to me is the definitive version of Arkham City. I mean, it has, with all the things they did with the gamepad, it really is a much better version than you can get anywhere else. Even if graphically you might be able to get it a little bit better on PC.
Right.
But obviously third-party support just didn't work out. EA dropped out of supporting the Wii U shortly after launch because Nintendo didn't want to put Origin on the Wii U. And then, they just had other issues. Ubisoft dropped out because people were still buying the games on other consoles and didn't want to buy them on Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, all these guys need to get in step together and start working together instead of working against each other. They'd sell more games. I purchased all of my Nintendo games because of Zelda, and a little bit less than that because of Mario games. You can never. I would never purchase a PS4 knowing that I wouldn't be able to play Zelda, because that's one of the few console games that I will play just about every time. I mean, I've been playing it for 30 years. If this is a 30-year anniversary, I've been playing that game for more than 75% of my life. So it's definitely the reason I would go with a Nintendo. I wouldn't go with any others because I can't get them.
All right. Is there any other news you want to talk about, or are you ready to finish off for the evening?
I haven't even really looked at news today. I got busy with some other stuff, so yeah, I'm probably newsed out.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take a quick break and then we'll finish off the show with our closing thoughts. All right. You ready to continue?
Yeah. What are these closing thoughts supposed to be?
Basically, you can give recommendations, dissuasions. You can just say anything you want to say to close out the show.
Okay. That sounds good.
And that's how we'll end it. Okay. All right. And we are back. In case you forgot, you've been listening to the Frozen Gamers Podcast, episode 86. I are going to finish off the show this evening with our closing thoughts. So Scott, why don't you start us off?
Mod. If you are a PC gamer and you have the opportunity to do so, download games that are going to let you mod. I think more and more developers are making it something that is part of their gaming experience, and knowing the people that are going to do it. The people that make these mods, I mean, I've always considered myself a geek, but some of these modders are just amazing at what they're able to do. And more and more, I will play a game for its vanilla story, but the options that are available with modding are just amazing. So I would actually highly recommend, especially for you, Nathan, as you're getting into the new computer, play through things once. When you mod it, whether you're doing it through Steam Workshop or through Nexus Mods, and they're both equally as easy to mod. When you mod it, expect your game to break. So play it through once so you get the whole story, and then go back and just start having fun with it, because some of the things that you can do are just amazing. So anybody out there who is unfamiliar with it, spend some time on YouTube, download all the videos you need on how to mod your games, and see the new heights that modding can take you to.
Yeah, I actually did do some modding with Oblivion. Like I had the Master Sword and Hylian Shield. I can't remember if I had other mods on there, but then also Grand Theft Auto 4, I got the Hulk mod where you can transform into the Hulk, and that was pretty awesome. Jumping around all over the place and catching rockets and throwing them back at people, or picking up cars and throwing them, using thunderclap, things like that.
Yeah, that's for me at my age and with everything I got going on. I gotta make a gaming experience really worthwhile. So I gotta mod it just to make it more fun.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, so my closing thoughts. Well, first off, I definitely want to recommend Star Wars Episode 7, and I want to recommend Xenoblade Chronicles X. Most of all, just because I haven't really recommended it before on here. And the last thing I want to recommend is, for those of you who are married out there, have a kid. It will change your life, but in such amazing ways. I mean, it's very possible you won't get a lot of sleep, but believe me, when you get to the point where the baby is smiling at you and cooing away and everything, it is the most wonderful thing in the world. And even just when they're first born, it's it's impossible to explain how great it is until you become a parent. And I know that there are listeners out there who are parents, and obviously Scott's been a parent far longer than I have. But yeah, it's awesome.
You know, I would have to agree with that in every way. You still don't get any sleep, even when you've had your kids for a decade. I still check on my kids every night and still worry about them, though, you know, not too deeply. But the first time Megan and his wife met my son, I don't know how much you remember, Nathan, but he would not stop screaming. He was just terrible in cars. He was a very needy baby. And they met my oldest son, Nemo, when he was 6 months old, and he's now turning 10. So isn't that amazing? 10 years. And he doesn't cry quite as much, but you know, even in the tough times, and there are some tough times that go with parenting, but every moment is worth it, no matter what high or what low, to have that ability to be a parent. So hey, I would absolutely agree 100%. If you have the capability of doing so, have some kids.
Definitely. All right. Well, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast, you can do so by visiting iTunes. You can follow us on twitter.com/frozengamers, and you can check out our site, frozengamerspodcast.com. There, every single episode is available to listen or download. Each includes specially designed artwork and featured music for the week. Be sure to write into us with questions, whether gaming related or not, and comments on anything you've heard through the aforementioned sources or through our email address, which is frozengamerspodcast@gmail.com. So for myself, Mr. Scott Summers, and the absent John Flam and Scotty Yar, we are the Frozen Gamers, and we will be back with you next time.